Advance voting is underway this Friday night. The lineups on the first day as the Liberals try to maintain momentum in the polls. The strategy they're playing up.
Who will stand up to President Trump?
The Conservatives promise to sack the ban on single-use plastics.
Plastic straws, checkout bags, food containers.
And where Pierre Poilievre stands on his pledge to fire the Bank of Canada's governor. Ultimatum, why the U.S. could pass on the Ukraine-Russia peace talks.
So this is important, but there are a lot of other really important things going on.
And home improvement. Why contractors say now might be the time to renovate.
Global National, reporting tonight, Nitu Karcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. With just 10 days to go until Election Day, Canadians aren't wasting time. Many are taking advantage of the long weekend to cast their ballot early. Advance voting got underway across the country today, and it didn't take long for lines to form outside polling stations shortly after opening this morning. The early vote runs through Monday. Meanwhile, party leaders were back on the campaign trail today after trading political blows during last night's English debate in Montreal. The final stretch of the campaign is crucial for the Liberals as they work to maintain their lead in the polls and keep the focus on U.S. President Donald Trump's threats as a defining election issue. David Akin is following their campaign. David, what's the strategy for the Liberals in these final days?
Well, Neithu, Liberals know that they do better if Donald Trump is the ballot question in this election, and so they need to keep Trump front and center in this campaign. And so for that final push towards the finish line to seal the deal and bring home a fourth consecutive Liberal term, Mark Carney headed straight to the border.
I think this is the biggest crisis of our lifetime.
Looking out over New York State, Carney acknowledged the close bonds between Americans and Canadians who live so close to each other.
And really that kinship is symbolized here behind me at Niagara Falls.
A Liberal has not won this riding in more than 20 years, but candidate Andrea Kaiser is convinced the wind is in her sails because of concern in her community about the relationship with the neighbors on the other side of that famous river.
I definitely talk about Mark Carney's leadership in terms of what he's already done for us and standing up to Donald Trump, because that is the biggest issue on people's minds right now.
The key question in this election is who is best placed to respond? Who will stand up to President Trump?
The Conservatives have an answer to that question.
I led Canada through the global financial crisis.
An answer delivered in an online ad out Friday featuring a former Prime Minister.
The two men running to lead us both once worked for me, and my choice unequivocally is Pierre Poilievre.
And yet the polls are unequivocal on this. Voters who think that U.S. relations are the top issue, Carney leads by a mile. But for those voters who think affordability is the most important issue, well, those prefer Poilievre. In any event, up next is the release of the full Liberal platform. And Mark Carney says he'll do that tomorrow at an event in the Greater Toronto area. Neithu.
All right, David Akin. Thanks, David. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre stayed in Montreal following the debate, using the stop to announce a new campaign promise. He vows to repeal the ban on single-use plastics, which he's framing as a tax if his party forms government.
We will axe the Liberal food packaging tax to save families $400 on groceries and to save 60,000 Canadians their jobs.
Poilievre says the Liberal food packaging rules have backfired, driving up food costs, straining small businesses, and creating more waste. He pledges to reverse the federal ban on plastic straws, bags, and containers. An old pledge from Pierre Poilievre is back under the microscope. During his Conservative leader run, Poilievre criticized the Bank of Canada's response to inflation and vowed to fire its governor if he became Prime Minister. Now, as Mackenzie Gray reports, that promise is drawing new questions, and Poilievre isn't offering clear answers.
It was one of Pierre Poilievre's first promises while campaigning to be Conservative leader.
I've already announced that I will fire the governor of the central bank to get inflation under control.
A crusade against Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem, who Poilievre continually blamed for high inflation, including once he became Conservative leader, where he took his attacks to another level in this interview with Prime Asia Television.
So do Canadians have a right to sue back?
They don't, but they should. That's a good point. You should be allowed to sue the Bank of Canada for the fact that it has destroyed so many people's livelihoods and households.
But Friday, Poilievre wouldn't repeat those same promises.
Do you still intend to fire the Bank of Canada governor?
Well, listen, my view is that when governments drive up inflation, the people who are responsible should be held accountable. So those people include Mark Carney.
The Conservative leader gave an over 2-minute response that didn't address the question and took no follow-ups. Poilievre's attack against the central bank, which sets interest rates independent of the government, similar to the man he's desperately trying not to be like.
That's because of the Federal Reserve, because they're not very smart people.
Donald Trump, who resumed his long-standing feud with Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell.
We have a Federal Reserve Chairman that is playing politics, somebody that I've never been very fond of, actually. If I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
Firing a central bank governor is extremely rare. South Sudan, Libya, and Turkey, some of the only countries to do this decade. If Poilievre follows through, during a trade war with the U.S., the former parliamentary budget officer believes it would cause a financial shock.
I think it'd be a very, very bad move, both from a policy perspective and I think from a political perspective.
When Poilievre was publicly promising to fire Macklem, the Conservatives were 20 points ahead in the polls, a lead they've now blown knee through to former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney, who's led the Liberals to majority territory.
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Montreal. Thanks, Mackenzie. And we'll have full coverage of the federal election on Monday, April 28th. Watch Decision Canada live on election night right here on Global and on all our streaming platforms. There is a blunt new warning tonight from the U.S. about the peace process to end the war in Ukraine. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says if Russia and Ukraine aren't serious about peace, the U.S. is prepared to walk away.
We need to determine very quickly now, and I'm talking about in a matter of days, whether or not this is doable over the next few weeks. If it is, we're in. If it's not, then we have other priorities to focus on as well.
Rubio made the remarks a day after meeting with Ukrainian and European diplomats in Paris, but he did not point any fingers. As Redmond Shannon reports, Russia still isn't easing up on its attack.
A residential neighborhood of Kharkiv after a deadly Russian airstrike. The mayor says 3 cluster bombs exploded in the area, causing extensive damage. The police chief says more than 90 people were injured and 1 killed. US President Donald Trump had said he could end this war in a day. Almost 3 months into his presidency, it appears his resolve is wearing thin.
If for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass.
Trump backing up his Secretary of State Marco Rubio Friday, who indicated the U.S. is prepared to walk away if there is no progress on peace in the coming weeks.
And Marco is right in saying it. We want to see it end.
Everybody wants to get peace.
On Thursday, Paris hosted peace talks, including Rubio's team, Ukrainian and European diplomats. That on the same day the US and Ukraine signed a memorandum of intent on a proposal that would give the US access to Ukrainian minerals and its energy sector, although it reportedly does not give Ukraine any security guarantees in return. The goal is to sign a full deal this month. Then Ukraine's parliament will vote on it. The country's citizens have mixed feelings. This man called it blackmail. This woman who lives in the US says she hopes the agreement won't humiliate Ukraine. Ukraine facing pressure from many sides Friday. China rejected Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's accusations that it's providing weapons to Russia. A Chinese government spokesperson called the claims political manipulation. The Kremlin says its current contacts with Washington are, quote, complicated, because it says getting a peace deal isn't easy. Last month, Russia rejected a US ceasefire proposal that had been agreed to by Ukraine. Neetu?
All right, Redmond Shannon in London. Thanks, Redmond. Washington's campaign against Houthi rebels in Yemen saw a deadly escalation overnight. Dozens were killed in the latest round of U.S. airstrikes against the Iran-backed militia. Massive fireballs were seen on Yemen's Red Sea coast as the American bombardment targeted a key oil terminal allegedly controlled by Houthi forces. The Houthi-run health ministry has reported at least 74 deaths, with more than 170 others injured. The figures could make it one of the deadliest U.S. strikes in the region since President Trump's new bombing campaign against the group. Israeli airstrikes across Gaza Friday killed at least 25 people, including 10 from the same family, according to hospital officials. The strikes hit southern areas like Khan Yunis and Jabalia. They came a day after more than 24 people were killed as Israel continued its attacks. There is mounting international concern over a food blockade and the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza. In Jerusalem, new U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee visited the Western Wall and vowed to push for the release of the hostages still held by Hamas. A haunting image of a Palestinian boy who lost both arms in an Israeli airstrike has been named World Press Photo of the Year. It was captured by Gaza-born photographer Summer Abu Alof, who said 9-year-old Mahmoud Ajour's first words to his mother after he realized his arms were amputated were, "How will I be able to hug you?" Where are luxury brands really made? Is it China? Coming up, we'll fact-check the claims being made on social media videos.
Let me tell you the secret. Louis Vuitton has many Chinese suppliers, but they just don't admit it.
You may have seen this viral trend flood your timeline in recent days. Chinese influencers taking aim at high-end luxury brands as they try to convince Americans to bypass U.S. and European companies and buy directly from them. The videos exploded following U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs as China looks to take the trade war online. They've already racked up millions of views, but just how true are their claims that some top brands are made in China? Nathaniel Dove reports.
Do you recognize this style, this bag? Of course you do.
A viral TikTok trend undercutting some of fashion's most luxurious brands by claiming China is the original equipment manufacturer, or OEM.
Your made in Italy Gucci 80% come from Chinese factory. They just add the logo in Europe to make you pay the price of 10 times.
High-end brands dispute that. Hermes says it makes 55% of its objects in its own exclusive workshops in France. Louis Vuitton says its leather goods are exclusively produced in its workshops in France, Spain, Italy, and the US, while Gucci says 95% of Gucci suppliers are in Italy. Experts tell Global News the truth is murky.
A lot of fashion brands, luxury down to fast fashion, produce in China, and they have for years.
Dana Thomas says some high-end bags are made where the companies say, but otherwise, many components and production comes from all over the world, including China.
We actually have seen items for very, very, very bottom-end brands being produced in exactly the same factories as very, very high-end.
Canada does have requirements for clothing labels, stating the country of origin of goods is the country in which the goods were substantially manufactured.
But what is substantial and what is not is a bit unclear.
Roland says brands could easily dispel any doubts about where things are made by being transparent. That could also ensure other conditions are being met. He points to Italian authorities accusing Dior of running sweatshops in Italy. Dior said a supplier hid the truth from them.
They know everything. It is all about precision. It's all about being perfect. It's all about being excellent. So they can't say, I've lost control of my supply chain.
Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Toronto.
Renovation uncertainty ahead, the impact of tariffs on an industry ready to build. A beloved Canadian rock band founded in the 70s won't ever be forgotten after a special gesture from Winnipeg City councillors. They renamed a section of the city's Disraeli Bridge roadway to Bachman-Turner Overdrive. Formed in Winnipeg, the band has achieved international success and is touring across Canada and the U.S. The tariff war is taking a toll on consumer confidence, and some Canadian contractors are reporting a decline in business as homeowners second-guess plans for renovations. Last year, Canadians spent more than $50 billion on home renos. But over the past 5 years, growth in the industry has been declining as Canadians tighten their budgets. As Kyle Benning reports, industry leaders say this may be a good time to get a project done.
It's an investment a number of homeowners across the country are second-guessing. While some were thinking of starting renovations over the spring and summer, contractors are seeing customers respond to the uncertain market with an uncertain commitment.
I see a change in behavior almost 100% from all the clients that I'm speaking with in terms of their feeling of concern that wasn't there, before this whole thing with the tariffs.
Mark Ashton says a number of his clients are choosing to reduce their reno budget or project, with the trade war leaving the final costs questionable. But industry groups say now might be the time to get a job done, given the availability of skilled workers and a lack of commitment from customers.
Anything that you're ready to move on quickly, the timing's pretty good, right? The prices are what they are.
The U.S. tariffs on aluminum and steel and Ottawa's retaliatory tariffs are having an impact on a number of products needed across a full renovation. But there's optimism that some supplies, like lumber, which has a strong domestic supply chain, could help balance the scales. Those in the industry echoing that now is the time to get small, quick renovations done as soon as possible, before trade relations with the U.S. alter even further, and so a project can be completed relatively quickly.
In a normal market, one of the big things you hear is, man, I can't get a hold of any renovator or any contractors to do my work. It's a little different right now, so if you're ready to go, it's a good time to pull the trigger.
Some contractors are now looking to change some suppliers, with the U.S. levy increasing estimate proposals.
You're expecting the price to go up by like $1,500 to $5,000, depending on the size of the project.
But they say looking for alternative options or domestic solutions could take some time. Kyle Benning, Global News, Toronto.
The Professional Women's Hockey League appears poised to build on its success. It's believed a team may be coming to Vancouver. It would be the PWHL's first expansion franchise, and coaches say Vancouver is well positioned for the team.
It's really exciting to see the players there. The numbers are there. The fans are there. It's been growing for a really, really long time. And so I think we're finally at a place where this can be sustained. And I think everyone's just excited to see it.
In January, the league's takeover tour drew more than 19,000 fans to Vancouver for a match against Montreal. The official announcement is expected next week. From the streets of Jerusalem to conflict zones, how Christians are marking Good Friday next. Christians around the world are taking part in Good Friday rituals today ahead of Easter Sunday celebrations. It's especially important for Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, holding its first Easter services since reopening last December. The cathedral had been under repair for years after a fire devastated the beloved church in 2019. It's already seen more than 3.5 million visitors since reopening. Good Friday services were also held at the Vatican, though Pope Francis did not preside over today's Mass. He's still recovering from pneumonia, and it's unclear if he will lead the Easter Sunday service. Mike Armstrong reports on the many ways people marked the solemn day.
The procession through Old Jerusalem is in what is said to be the footsteps of Jesus. Worshippers carrying crosses, retracing the route from where Jesus is believed to have been condemned to death to the tomb where he was buried.
Come here, König!
In Germany, instead of a retracing, a reenactment.
König, hoch!
The tradition in Bensheim, south of Frankfurt, involves close to 100 actors. It's a play that winds through town, the audiences moving with it.
Also wir fanden das ganz großartig.
Emotions caught this woman by surprise. She says she was holding back tears, watching what she calls a testimony of faith.
Lege ich meinen Geist.
The crucifixion and death of Jesus is often referred to as the Passion of the Christ. Passion is from the Latin word for suffering. The recreations around the world, from the Philippines to London, England, are meant to remember that pain and the message that came from it. Even from the cross, Jesus is said to have forgiven his torturers and a criminal beside him.
That forgiveness is the answer, but it's so hard to do, but ultimately it's always the answer.
In the Czech Republic, an old tradition has been resurrected. Marchers in masks walk through town with wooden rattles. They're meant to ward off Judas, the apostle said to have betrayed Jesus. A local family has brought back what was once a tradition across the region. Thousands of worshippers gathered in Rome at the Colosseum Friday. It's a tradition that dates back to the 1750s. The crucifixion is also being remembered in places where doing so is more difficult. This is southern Lebanon, a region caught in the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. While in Ukraine, there was a Russian drone strike Friday on a bakery. One man was killed preparing paskas, traditional cakes for Easter. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada showcases a patriotic home in White Lake, Ontario, a colorful fishing stage in Frenchman's Cove, Newfoundland and Labrador, and a proudly Canadian dog named Pearl Frank in Calgary. Please keep sending your pictures of Canadian pride to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.